guys, my name is Michael and welcome to a new GTK tutorial. Today we are going to move on and we are going to learn some new things which we can apply when we are working with signals. And before we move on, let us take a short brief from the last video where we were creating a click a cable function just to be sure that when we click a button we can check if in this callback we can retrieve the signal ID of the GSignal connect function, which is the return type of this one right here, and the signal ID which is basically in the main should match with this one which is in the click callback function. Now I'm going to compile it and run it. As you can see, the signal ID in main is 41 and the signal ID in click callback it is also 41, which means it's true. That being said, being true, we can work with this signal, and now it is time basically to see how this signal works and why do we need this signal ID and where, for example. So now I'm going to remove this print gprint call right here, and the next thing which I'm going to do, I'm going to create a global variable and I'm going to say static gboolean, let's say global flag, and then I'm going to set it to false. Now this global variable, it will be the return variable from the delete event callback. So at this point, delete event callback right here, when the event type is equal to delete, it should return the global flag, which is the false. So basically when I'm compiling and run the program right now, it should behave the same. So once that I close the button, everything works fine. So no and makes no difference. Here we can still see the signal ID is 42, which is the ID. Now the function which I'm going to introduce you today, but before that let me mark it at done right here, this one as well, because we already learned. As you can see, 2, 4, 6 functions we learned already. Now the next two functions which I'm going to introduce you today, they are called GSignal handle block and GSignal handle unblock. These two functions basically says blocks a handle of an instance, so it will not be called during any signal emissions unless it is unblock it again. Thus, blocking a signal handle means to temporarily deactivate it. So a signal handle has to be unblocked exactly the same amount of time it has been blocked before to become active again. In other words, don't call this function 2 times on the same ID and just call 1 time the handle unblock. You should always pair it. Call when you block it, then later unblock it, and again. So make sure that you don't mix them. And for this I'm going to show you a way how you can work with, but you will find yourself better ways anyway. So the handle ID has to be a valid signal ID, handle ID connected to a signal instance, and it will always be. Why? Because we already learned that the GSignal handle is connected, can check that for us, and if it's true, then it will provide us. Now, the GSignal handle unblock, the next function, it says undoes the effect of previous GSignal handle block call. A block handle is skipped during signal emission and will not be invoked. So unblocking it for exactly the amount of time. You see, it says again it has been blocked before, reverse its blocked state. So the handler will be recognized by the signal system and is called upon future or currently ongoing signal emission. Since the order in which handlers are called during signal emission, it is deterministic. So whether the unblocked handle in question is called as part of currently ongoing emission depends on how far the emission has proceeded yet. Anyway, the handler ID has to be a valid ID, the same story. So we already know why, because we work with GSignal handle is connected before. Now the things which we are going to do, or better said, the first thing which we are going to do, I'm going to create a local variable right here just to be sure that we are not calling too many times the block it or wrong to try to unblock a signal which is not blocked already. Because if you do that, let me show you something. Let me call first the unblock for a second, which will be very interesting. So I'm going to call it right here. I'm going to say now the window has a signal ID which which I need to block it, to unblock it. I cannot do that. Why? You'll see in a second. It says, the GTK says, watch what, when I press the button, it says handle 42 instance is not blocked. So that's an error. Don't do it. Okay, I'm going to remove it, and like I said, here I'm going to say static g boolean local flag, and I'm going to set it to true. Now here inside, I'm going to remove this thing right now and say if local flag, if it's true, then let's say g print, whoa, I went too much, g print, and here the delete event was blocked should be printed because we tried to block it. And by doing this, we are going to say the local flag, it should set to false. The global one should be set to true because we need to reverse it. And of course, now we can safely call the handle block function. And here we are going to put, of course, the window and the signal ID, which we need to block it. Now, else if the local flag is not equal to true, which means it should be false, gprint will say delete event works fine, whatever you decide. And here, of course, we need to reverse those things. So local flag should be now set back to true. Global one should be now set to false. And next, we need to call this time to unblock it. And here, again, window and signal ID. Now, if everything works fine, what we did here? Let's say we created a global variable which we set it to false, and this variable being set to false basically returns false when the event type is GTK delete. In other case, basically when you compile it and run it, if you hit the X button or the close button here, then should return, which means says have a nice day and goodbye. Both functions basically return, this one and this one, both works fine, and that happens because we are basically working with these two signals, GSignal connect on the delete event and GSignal connect swap on the destroy. So basically we have those two set. Now we decide if someone clicks the button, then it should block the event, which means it should block this signal and should not, this function should not ever run. And that happens because you destroy it. Basically you block it somehow, you temporarily disconnect it. And if you click again, then the event works, the event works fine because you put it back, you unblock it back. So let's see if this behavior takes place. So now if I hit the button X, have a nice day, goodbye, works fine because we do nothing. I'm compiling and run it again. I hit the button, says that the event was blocking. So now watch, if I hit the X button, it should not print have a nice day, and it doesn't because we block it. Now to do that, when you hit the button and says the delete event was blocked, if you close it, you saw that the goodbye message is printed without the have a nice days. But if I hit the button again, now says the event or delete event works fine. And now when I hit the X button again, it should say, as you already noticed, have a nice day and goodbye. So basically this is the point where when you will need at some point in your application to block a signal for a particular time or reason, for based on a variable like we did now in our example. This is the way how we do it, and these are those functions which does this for you. And this is how you work with that. Now I'm going to copy these two calls because I want to mark them also as done So now we have two more functions which we learn, which is a very good thing for us. And as you can see, we learn about GTK Connect, GTK Connect Thread. After data object, GTK handle is connected, handle block and handle unblock, which is a good thing until now for us. That being said, thank you guys for watching. If you like it, please subscribe, share with your friends and neighbors, and until next time, see you guys.